Welcome to the 4X genre, a true disappointment. Here you can see Masters of Orion 2. Oh, no, wait. This is no? This is Endless Space 2. Yeah, I think this is Endless Space 2. But you'd be forgiven for not being able to tell because they're all the same game. And that's the heart of why I'm so disappointed in this genre. This is a micro-genre that is very popular with the few people that play it, but the heart of the problem is that only a few people play it. That's a huge disappointment because when you're young and you play this, you can see in your head ideas of how this genre will go, because the fantasies that this genre fulfills are very widely applicable. Everybody wants to see a story of their species colonizing a new world and figuring out how to get around the strange animals and plants and building towering spires. Everybody wants to be able to see their fleet of ships and another fleet of ships. Ah, look, they're fighting it out. Lasers are firing, C-beams are burning. Everybody wants to see, oh, look at these aliens we made friends with and these aliens that were our enemies. Oh, well, maybe we can turn that around, pull a Federation Klingon thing and get them on our side. Oh, that'll be fun. Look at this hero we've sent in to uncover the secrets of the ancients. These are stories that are very compelling. They're stories that movies are made out of. And they're stories that the 4X genre is uniquely able to tell, but seems to have no interest in telling. As far as I can tell, the 4X genre is only interested in regurgitating Masters of Orion 2. That was a wildly successful game, so obviously we'll just remake it over and over and over. But Masters of Orion 2 is already a bit kludgy. And so what do we get? We get that plus more kludge. The stories that these games are supposed to tell are now lost in a morass of paperwork. If you like these games, that's fine. You have a very, very high tolerance for paperwork, and I'm not going to hold that against you. But it is a situation where you like it in spite of its many flaws. These games can help to tell these stories and give these experiences much more compellingly if we cut away a lot of the crap that we're seeing. These games have become less than the sum of their parts. And I'd like to talk about that. So, let's talk about, we need all of these parts, all these pieces, all these mechanics to work together to help us tell the story of our spacefaring species rising to preeminence in the galactic stage. So, what sort of mechanics are we going to use to help tell that story? How do those things fold together? Oh, well, here's one. If you've never played Endless Space 2, you may not know what this is. This is a hacking screen. Every few turns, I have to come in here and manually designate another hack. So far, I've spent the past 20 turns manually hacking Gatria to make them like me. I can't send diplomats. I can't send traitors. I can't send bards. But I can hack them. So now they like me because I hacked them a lot. There's nothing particularly interesting about Gatria liking me. I get a little bit of resources, but it's not like I get visited by them or have any sort of cultural exchange with them. Just another entry on the spreadsheet. This is an anti-story. It doesn't make sense that my species would use hacking. I'm not a machine or nerd species. It doesn't make sense that I wouldn't be able to reach out with politicians or entertainers or cultural attaches. And it doesn't make sense that if I do make friends with them, nothing happens and nothing interesting unfolds between us. This is like the bones of a story. Oh, this new species settled a planet right across from an older species that's been there for eons and hasn't moved at all. And then they became friends, and together the two of them did nothing. They did nothing. And you can argue like, oh, well, you just haven't gone far enough. Well, that's the problem, isn't it? You need to either be selling me on the upcoming story or already be unveiling the story. And neither of those things is true here. I don't like hacking. It doesn't make sense for my species. It doesn't make sense in the game world. They didn't try and sell me on it. It's not like they came by and said, oh, look, this cool hacking technology that you're using. No, they just say, you must designate a hack. You haven't designated a hack. Hey, your hack expired. Designate a hack. Hey, you should hack because your hack has expired. Designate a hack. That's just spreadsheets. That's just more mindless tedium to micromanage. It doesn't help to sell the story. And the truth is, none of these features do. These features are all just leftovers from older games that used them less successfully anyway. Everybody's been using these features and they've never worked. It's like homeopathy of features. Here, for example, are the planets. What kind of stories do you want from these planets? Well, here's my homeworld, Lahat 3. Lahat 3, an atoll world. I actually settled here because I lost my original homeworld. And that should be very compelling. The people land on this planet. They crawl across the surfaces and build bridges. Huge bridges across vast ocean reaches. And we have these armadas of ships moving across the waves, fishing. Our solar panels rise up out of the salty mists, gather that sunlight. That would be really cool. Look, you can even see like a little glimpse hidden over here in the corner. That's all you're going to get, though, because none of that stuff actually works as a story in the game. In the game, you can build stuff, but you build it for the system, not for the planet. Now, that's a little bit unusual, but even if you're building it just for the planet, the things you're building are not very interesting. And this is part of the problem, right? If I go and I try and build something on Lahat 3, if I want to make this into a farming world, then I can build farming-related stuff like epigenetic crop seeding and intensive cultivation logistics and intensive cultivation. And, I already built one or two other things that you can't even see because they vanish when you build them. But none of these feel like they are telling a story. If I want the story of Lahat 3 to be, this is the bread box of my star civilization, then I should be able to build bread box stuff. And I should see that happening. I should see that unfolding. Not necessarily visually, but even just numerically. And that's not what's happening here, because if you build something for Lahat 3, not only does it get built on Lahat 4 and Lahat 2 and Lahat 1, it also just doesn't have a strong sense of being a vector. It's just like you're always picking low-hanging fruit. The first farming upgrade takes 2 turns to install. So does the first engineering upgrade and the first social upgrade. These things all take a very short amount of time. The second tier takes 15 turns, and the third tier takes 30 turns. It's like, obviously you're just going to build all of the tier 2 stuff and have a generic blob of tech. There's no vector here. I can't focus Lahat 3 on farming because if I do, I'm actively playing the game badly. And, just slapping down the same tech over and over and over on every single world isn't going to tell a different story per world. Well, I mean, you could make a game like that. It would be kind of interesting, a Borg game or something. But that's not the point. The point is it certainly doesn't happen here. I can keep going. Shall we talk again? Here. This is... look, the Senate breakdown. So this is interesting. The idea here is that you can see the culture of your species, and you can influence it. Like, not your species, your entire federation. There might be 10 species in here, and they all have different opinions. And, you got the scientists and the militarists, and it's going to get more complicated because I'm still in the early game, right? So someday I might have 10 factions all vying for what's going on. But it's not connected to anything. It's kind of sort of driven by an event engine, but you can't really see that happening. It just kind of happens, and you have to manually check and see whether or not any events have happened that you might care about. And it's like, it's not clear, it's not interesting, it's not really telling a story, it's just stuff. And there are laws, right? I can add more active laws, but shaping the laws of my culture, all of these laws have such significant drawbacks that there's no reason to do it in the early game. Not unless something very strange is happening. But you can only pass a few laws. So why would you need drawbacks as well as limited law passing? It would make more sense from a story perspective if I was allowed to pass a law for more scientists or whatever that had no drawbacks. Because the core drawback is the fact that I can only pass 2 laws. Then later on, I can start to make sacrifices to get more scientists, or whatever it is I care to do. That's part of the story. But you can't just say, oh, hey, you're just getting started and you don't know anything about the game. You should pass one of these laws that you can't even tell if it's a good deal or not because you don't know how unhappiness works. How does it work? We haven't explained that yet. You'll be an hour 10 before you know that. So why would I pass laws that are so foggy and confused? At its heart, this is an interesting idea. The idea here is that the laws affect your entire civilization. So they can be really important for telling the civilization's overall story. And you have conflicts, right? Like, oh, I passed this science law, but this one system is entirely focused on agriculture, and science is completely useless to them. So they're not a very good fit right now, and they're going to get annoyed by that, and it's going to chafe. It sounds like a great idea, but it never really happens. Shall we continue? Hey, look, here's our tech tree. The tech tree, oh, sorry. Hey, look, which one was it? This one? Hey, look, here's our tech tree. It's the same tech tree that's in all of these games, but it's rendered far more confusingly so that you have a harder time understanding what's going on. And none of it seems to have a vector. Like, if we research xenolinguistics, we don't then get a spate of xenolinguistic options. We get, oh, you got xenolinguistics, now you can move on to any of these. It's like, that's not really telling me a story. And of course, if you do unlock them, it pops up with a big, oh, you unlocked the next tier of this science. It's like, nice, I guess. But the thing I researched is unimportant. The only thing I needed to know is that I did research something. There are some that descend from each other like this, but it's really confused and complex. Like, why is compact warp methods here sandwiched between 2 things that are linked to their parents? It's just chaotic to be chaotic, and it doesn't help me to figure out the story of the technologies I'm uncovering. If my technologies help me to tell the unique tale of my civilization, then there needs to be a strong vector to them so that I can really hammer down that I am the laser guys or whatever, right? Of course, that's not how it works because it's got to be balanced, and that means you've got to choke out anything that would be helpful to creating a story. And that's a core issue here, isn't it? We got the same problem with each of these, like the idea of unique strategic items. Oh, look, this universe has 4 different unique strategic items that you can collect. It's like, yeah, I get it. The point there is to try and create a kerfuffle between, civilizations that have cornered the market on certain items and stuff like that. But it's a really clumsy way of doing it, and it feels very unnatural because we as a species don't really know where these things would be, but we're still told that we need them. Like, oh, you need Hyperium to settle a new colony. And it's like, what's Hyperium? And the game is like, well, you need to research it before you can get it, obviously. It's like, well, then why do I need it? I don't know it exists. How would I know that I need it? The story is falling apart because you've decided that you want to try and balance the game in such a way to create conflicts later. If that's the case, then you need to sell me on the fact that this stuff is really interesting and important. And this is something that Endless Space 2 in particular is terrible at because the heroes in this game are bizarre. So here's the only hero I have in this game, Petrov Jutka. And she's not mine. She comes from a mythical space factory. And that's the only place you can get new heroes. You can only get new heroes from the magic space factory of heroes. So whenever there's a story beat, she's like, oh yeah, you know how I don't work for you and I'm not one of your people and I come from a faraway space place and I'm not telling you how to get there or anything? Yeah. It's like, that's not my story. If this is supposed to be the story of my people, why is it instead the story of the Magic Space Academy? Ugh. And we have the same problem with other games. I mean, it's not... This is a particularly egregious example. But in Stellaris, for example, you go hunting with your science ships and you scan a whole bunch of planets out in the early game. And it seems like it's going to be really cool, and then nothing happens. There's no story to the scanning of planets, to the uncovering of things. There's just random crap. And if you scan a lot of random crap, you get more experience points. And if you don't scan a lot of crap, you get less experience points. And that is the extent of the story. To try and kind of pave over these problems, these games make heavy use of plot-related quests. This has become something that has become a standard fare. Masters of Orion 2 didn't really do it because Masters of Orion 2 actually knew what it was doing and didn't need them. But since then, we've got things like quests and, optional objectives, and I've got a million of them. Hey, look, Chapter 1, we should do this. There's actually, like, a whole bunch of them. Look I've got 5 current quests. I think the idea here is that if I manage to complete one of these quests, it'll help me tell the story of my species. But these quests are not only hard-coded, but you get just giant batches of them. With the idea that maybe we can pick and choose which ones make sense for our species as a story. But shouldn't your mechanics do that? Why have mechanics if everything's going to come down to which quests you want to do? Might as well just face me with a bunch of quests and let me choose from them. And not have any of the micromanagement. Now, obviously, I'm arguing from a place of dissatisfaction, and a lot of these things are techniques and mechanics that a lot of people would argue do eventually create good stories. Like, oh look, pirates, this is going to create a great story, right? Well, I mean, this is also left over from the ancient ye olde days when these guys didn't exist. So why do we have both pirates and minor factions? They're the same. Speak. Why would we have both of them as options? Does it add something to the story? I mean, I guess the pirates are a magical, centralized group of evildoers, maybe. But obviously they can't be allowed to do very much because they aren't allowed to upset the balance of the game. So your story can never involve pirates in any sort of significant way because they're not allowed to do anything. If they were, then your story would always be about pirates because there are always pirates. And that's true of all of these things, like the scanner, the hacker. If this is part of your story, fine, but now they're forcing it to be part of every species' story. And that's why more is not necessarily better. If we wanted to tell a story, let the players tell their story. If we want the players to be able to build their own spacefaring federation or whatever, we have to understand the kinds of stories that we want the player to be able to tell and where those touchstones are and how they lock together. And it turns out that if you start thinking like that, you can throw away a tremendous amount of the crap that we've built up over the years. Like when we talk to a civilization, here's the civilization that we've encountered so far. When we talk to this lady, all we can do is give her stuff or recruit stuff, get stuff from her. We can only just trading. We can't do anything else. Does that help to build our story? Well, fundamentally, the story that we're trying to tell here is how much her presence on our borders influences us and in what ways. Is she a pressure that forces us to move in the other direction? Does she spur us on to desperately developing our planets as fast as possible? Or maybe we are cultural friends and we kind of do some sort of cultural exchanges. Maybe we can get like a pop star fish lady and she'll become one of our heroes and be able to bring the culture of her people to our people, and it'll turn out that maybe, that's going to give them too much influence over us, and later on we're going to have a hard time resisting being absorbed by them. And those are the stories that we want to build. This doesn't help. This is nothing. This is spreadsheet crap. Now, obviously, I'm sort of saying, oh, you shouldn't have a game in your game. Yeah. I'm telling you that the mechanics that you use should help to do the thing you're trying to do. The player is here for a specific kind of experience, a specific fantasy that you're selling them on. And none of those fantasies are likely to involve, yes, please, let's trade our magic goods for your magic goods. Would you like some of our people? I mean, none of these things end up really feeling like anything because they're just numbers, just micromanagement. It's just not as interesting as it should be. Similarly, if we want to sell the fantasy of colonizing worlds, then the fucking worlds need to get colonized. There's no mystery there. Let me actually colonize the worlds along a story vector. Let me figure out if I want to make this world a world of farming or whatever, a science world. Those are the things that I need to be able to focus on. And instead I'm being told that I need to just get everything because that's the efficient way to do it. And same with science. If science is supposed to help to tell the story of how my people move through the cosmos in their own unique way, then you should really let me pick a unique way to move through the cosmos. These are all story vectors. These mechanics these have to be balanced mechanics in order to make the game interesting, but they need to be mechanics that allow me to tell the story of my people. And that's just not happening these days. If I do get a story, it's 20 hours in. It's like, you're going to wait that long? Sure, I mean, the first 20 hours are compelling because I like balancing spreadsheets. It's kind of my thing. I'm a nerd. But I sure wish that I knew who I was balancing the spreadsheets for. Anyway, sorry if this upset you if you're a fan of the genre. That's just my thoughts on the matter. Have a good one, everybody.